With us now is the former president of Colombia, Iván Duque. He is currently the chair and distinguished fellow of the Iván Duque Center for Prosperity and Freedom at the Wilson Center. President, thank you for being with us. What exactly happened yesterday?
Well, Jose, first of all, thank you for having me here in your show. And I think what we saw was a reckless behavior from the Colombian president, because Colombia has for a long time exercised a common and agreed deportation policy with the United States regarding people in illegality conditions in the U.S. And actually, the two flights that were supposed to arrive to Colombia had a previous permit from Colombian authorities. And all of a sudden, at 3 a.m. in the morning, the Colombian president decided to send a message saying that he will deny the arrival of those planes. And then he enters into an ideological battle with President Trump, sending different kinds of messages and trying to exacerbate the situation. And obviously what he got in response was a clear application of sanctions that could have destroyed the Colombian economy within weeks. Fortunately, I think the Colombian officials that saw how this crisis was unfolding decided to push back inside the administration, and finally Colombia accepted the deportation into terms and conditions that the U.S. had set. But let me say something. Just last year, Colombia received more than 14,000 deportations from the U.S. without any major problem. So I think this was a real reckless behavior, trying to exercise some kind of political attention worldwide. But I think it went very bad for Colombia. And fortunately, I think now everybody is a little bit calm just because the Colombian administration decided to fully accept the conditions of the deportation set by the U.S.
And as President, those 14,000 deportees last year that were received by Colombia of its citizens being deported from the United States was under the current president of Colombia's term. It's not like there's a change.
But let me say this, Jose. Let me say this. The U.S. has deported people to Colombia for decades. And there has always been institutional agreements to allow those deportations to take place. And as I said, last year, and it was still in the Petro administration, they received 14,000 and nothing was said. It was all managed through the institutional challenges. But let me also put something into consideration. We have been receiving from Mexico, for example, massive amounts of deportations and at the same time inadmissions. And nothing has been said by President Petro regarding the Mexican administrations, neither the López Obrador and now the Sheinbaum. So clearly, what he tried to do here was try to gain some attention and trying to enter into an ideological battle based on prejudice at a cost that would have been horrendous for the Colombian people. So this just shows this pattern of reckless behavior that is putting on a permanent basis our economy and our people into difficult situations, stress situations, and even the possibility of people to lose everything.
I want to ask you about the President of the United States' reaction, not just yesterday, but President Trump has said he may impose tariffs on Mexico and Canada as soon as this next Saturday. That's despite the free trade agreement he negotiated during his first term with the United States, Mexico, and Canada. What would you tell the leaders of Mexico and Canada?
Well, Jose, let me just start by saying that I had the possibility of serving with President Trump when I was president of Colombia, and we had a great relationship. I think we got to not only strengthen our free trade agreement, we also got a lot of U.S. investment, but also the United States helped us lead with many security challenges in the battles that we had with the Maduro regime, since we also accused him at the International Criminal Court. He supported us during the pandemic, and he also supported us through USAID to manage the influx of Venezuelan migrants that were literally leaving their country because all the humanitarian crisis triggered by the dictatorship. So we had a great relationship that was also bipartisan and bicameral. And I believe that trade is a great instrument if it is managed in the right way and if it's a win-win situation. But I also believe that, in particular in the case of Mexico, what the U.S. wants in return is to have a really strict policy against narco trafficking and also putting an end to the massive amount of illegal migration that is taking place in the U.S. southern border. Now, in those negotiations, I think if Mexico takes a great responsibility and really enters into what everybody expects, which is to tackle the criminal behavior of their cartels, and also contributes to reduce the pressure in the southern border, I think they can build a very clear agreement with the U.S. The case with Canada is much different. It's more complex. And I don't think this is the main issue of discussion, because this is also related to trade policies, migration policies that have been there for decades. And as you know, it has multiple nuances that have to be defined bilaterally. But I think in particular in the case of Mexico, if Mexico continues supporting the Mexican cartels by not enforcing the spirit of law and order, and if it doesn't do what they really have to do in terms of deter the massive pressure in the U.S. southern border, I think the U.S. is going to use tariffs as a way of leveraging the negotiation.